Hello, everyone. Welcome. Bienvenidas. Es un placer estar aquí con ustedes. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for signing up for this free class celebrating the Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm really happy to be here with you because my work focused on Latinas so much. And I identify as a Latina as well. So being here with you is very special for me. I'm going to jump right into the content. Right now, I'm going to mute everyone, but afterwards, I'll take some questions, right? Okay. So just some pieces of information for us to begin with. In the second quarter of 2023, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that among the major race and ethnicity groups, the median weekly earnings of Blacks and Hispanics working full-time jobs were lower than those of whites and Asians. Black women's median earnings were reported to be 13.7% lower than those of white women, American white women, while wages for Hispanic women were 10% lower than those of Black women and 22.4% lower than those of white women. So women are very familiar with the glass ceiling concept in general. It's a phenomenon coined by the writer Marilyn Loden in 1978. And Latinas have a much lower glass ceiling. And that's why I do the work that I do. So again, welcome to this free lesson about storytelling for this special audience, Latinas. This is my way to celebrate the Latin culture in this Hispanic Heritage Month in 2023. I find it beautiful to celebrate these dates, like just partying and everything. But what I really like to do is to act and to leverage action as well. If we celebrated less and did more for people, I think would be in a better place, all of us. But back to the content and the information I just shared. If you're not familiar with the glass ceiling concept, it is usually applied to people of marginalized genders, and it represents this invisible barrier that prevents an oppressed demographic from rising beyond a certain level in a hierarchy at work. No matter how invisible the glass ceiling is expressed, it is actually an obstacle very difficult to overcome. Another concept that's important to understand is intersectionality, which means the overlapping of different layers that potentialize any type of prejudice felt by an individual. So, for example, being a woman is one layer, right? Then you're a woman who has a Black skin. That's a second layer. And then you identify as a Latina. It's a third layer. It already makes you feel a much stronger type of prejudice against you than those who have only one or two layers. And it also depends on the layer. We know about that too. On top of that, you may also, let's say, identify as a non-binary. So you're gonna have layer 1, 2, and 3, and then the fourth layer. Or you may have a disability, that's a fifth layer. Or maybe you're over 50 years old, that's a sixth layer. So this intersectionalities, all of this makes it much harder for us women to talk about ourselves and to effectively self-promote. We are very self-conscious about our identities. And when reminded of all these topics and these layers, and according to the way people relate to us or talk to us or refer to us, we can feel very, we can feel even shy, or we may want to close up ourselves. We may want to just shut up and be invisible at some times. So what I would say is that we should pay attention to the identity of people, how they identify, in every moment of our lives and in conversations, especially us Latinas, being aware of each other and helping each other, plus being aware of others, we can actually help change these things and move the needle a bit forward, because it's been moving in a very old-fashioned way. Besides, another topic that makes it very hard for us Latinas to self-promote is because we were raised in a very much of a collective culture. Latins are all about the group and the community, which opposes to how Americans are raised. As the United States, for example, is the #1 individualistic country in the world. So it means that while we value things, we value pronouns like we and us, we've done this together as a team, and we value the teamwork. I'm not saying that Americans don't, but when it comes to self-promoting, they take credit for their achievements, or even the team's achievements. It's like, I led the team. Of course, the team was there too, and I did this because of the team, but it's me. I'm the leader, and I will self-promote. I will tell people that I did that. And that's a very important topic when it comes to self-promoting effectively in the workplace, in order to get a promotion, in order to get a salary raise, in order to get a different scope or whatever you want, even changing jobs and interviewing for jobs. That gap alone, the gap of communication, is responsible for several misunderstandings at the workplace, and it ends up holding back Latinas from career growth. Try to think about that. I want us to take just a moment to think about all the moments that we saw people self-promoting and people taking credits for actions that were actually actions from their teams, for example. And again, it's fine to do that. As long as you do not say that you did this alone, it's okay to do that because you actually led the team. The modesty factor is something that we need to tune down a little bit. You know, I think that's the most important characteristic of differentiation between Americans and Latins in that regard. The modesty norms that affect women in general, even white American women, it affects them too, but it affects so much more the las Latinas in general. So think about all the moments that this type of thing happens to you. Yeah? I see some nodding faces here. So it is critical for any marginalized group to recreate the story they want to share at work, in job interviews, maybe in podcasts as guests. Otherwise, it will naturally be filled up with discrimination and pain. It's very natural for us to tell stories about overcoming difficulties, about the hard times, about how hard it was for us to get to where we are. If you work in or with Americans or in an American culture, you know that redemption stories are loved and cherished, but they do not help move the needle forward. Again, winners tell winning stories. And my glass is so dirty. So remember this, winners tell winning stories. And you won. Just by being where you are, you won already. How can you think of your story in a different way? Not in a way that actually portrays all the pain that you've been through or shares all the little details of how hard it is for you to be there. It is harder for you. And we know, this community here knows. But people usually don't care about it, unfortunately, but they don't. That's the truth. So it is time for us to fix our stories, not by hiding the sad bits, no, but by learning from them and building up on the lessons learned. You never lie, you reframe it. It's never a lie, it's a reframing. It's like I'm seeing this big picture of this landscape with a swimming pool and a barbecue place and people having fun, and I just want that angle. Or maybe I was going to say a dog there, and then you go even tiny. Or I just saw my dog out there. That's why I'm saying this. So there you go. You just reframe it and focus on what's important. All the rest is still there. All the rest is always also part of the fact that the dog is out there. It is important. It's the context. It's what made it happen. So you need to honor that. You need to pay attention to all the learnings and all the details that actually brought you here. Eventually, they will come up, but it's not the focus of your story. Your story cannot be that complex. Your story should be simple and focus on what matters at that moment. And it changes, right? This is something that I work a lot with my clients. It changes depending on your audience, depending on the person you're speaking to. So sometimes if you're in an interview, you're going to talk about the people around the pool being happy. And sometimes if you're in a podcast, what matters is that there is a pool there. And if you want to be promoted, maybe the fact that there is a dog playing outside, that's important. I'm using very generic terms of a picture here, just for you to understand that the scenario is the same. You just need to pick and choose what to use in your story. I'm not changing your story, I'm reframing it. So why storytelling? And let me try and share my screen here with you. Let's see if I can do that here. Okay, can you all see my screen? I hope so, yes. Okay, good. Just move this here. All right, so why storytelling? Stories have the power to captivate and engage audiences in a way that facts and data alone cannot. Stories create a shared experience between the storyteller and the listener, facilitating effective communication and persuasion. Through storytelling, complex ideas can be simplified, memorable messages can be conveyed, and positive change can be inspired. Storytelling has the power to bring people together, creating a sense of community and shared purpose. By sharing stories of social injustice, marginalized voices, and calls for change, storytelling can mobilize individuals, spark movements, and drive progress. Stories have been a driving force behind countless social and political transformations throughout history. We all love stories. We all love listening to stories. We were raised asking to hear stories about our heritage, about our legacy. What is this that is your legacy in your family? What's important for them? What are they living in the world? You like to hear these stories, especially us Latins, because our stories are so rich. They come from immigrants, they come from mixed races, they come from very strong cultural roots. They're so powerful, and we love these stories. Why don't we use the same passion to talk about ourselves when we are self-promoting? Right? I always love to say that we do not necessarily remember all the details of a conversation, but we certainly remember how we felt after the conversation. And this is achieved through storytelling. How? So a little bit of theory here to you. When you're listening to information, only two parts of your brain are activated, and they are in the cortex. It's the Broca's, this area, Broca's area, the blue area here in the picture, which is responsible for the production of human language, and the Wernicke's. I don't know how to pronounce this correctly. Probably it's wrong, but forgive me. Which is this orange area here, responsible for comprehension of human language. Only these I'm like two. Only these two areas are actually activated when you're listening to information. So it becomes very easy to forget the information, tiny areas. However, when you're listening to a story, your entire brain lights up because your emotions and your senses also become engaged. So if I tell you a story about whatever, and I can only think of dogs, I don't know why, but I can talk about how my dog got hurt. So the other day, my dog woke up and came down to have his breakfast, and all of a sudden there was a lot of blood on the floor. It was super scary. I was looking at all this blood and I was like, oh my gosh, where is it coming from? And I was looking at him and I couldn't see a thing. I couldn't see a cut or a scratch or anything. I was looking at his paws and I was looking at his belly, all his parts. Like, I was like, what's going on, Ringo? Come on. And he was bleeding. And then because I was touching him, he was shaking. And then there was blood everywhere. I swear to you, there was blood. My walls and my cabinets, everything in the kitchen was painted in red. It was pure blood. It looked like this Pollock. Are you familiar with Jackson Pollock's art? Right? It was like a magical Pollock all around my house, but all red. I was like, oh my gosh, what can I do? And then I realized it has these hound ears, very pretty ears, soft ears. And the tip of the ear, it was a tiny, I swear to you, it was that tiny of a cut. And that was responsible for all the bleeding. So Ringo is my first dog. Now I also have Bella, but they're my two first dogs, basically. I've never had dogs before in my life. So I did not know about that. Did you know that there are so many vessels and terminations in the dog's ear? That's one of the places that has more blood and it bleeds more as they get cut. I wasn't aware of this. But their ears are bouncing all the time. He's shaking, and that's what happens. So we had to take him to the vet to do something because it's on the tip of the ear. I could not just patch it with it just would fall, right? I don't know how to do that. So basically, he went to the doctor, and they put some padding in it, and then they pull his ears back. And he was wearing a kind of a helmet, like it was a green thing that looks more like, I don't know, it's like those leg warmers. It's like you put a leg warmer on the neck of the dog and covering the head. So if he shook, he wouldn't move the ears. They were tied back. And it was so sad to see him that way. But it took him like about 10 days to heal. And he was very depressed. If you have dogs, and I see some people's faces here, yeah, we feel for them, right? He was so sad. And they get so sad because their ability to hear is also compromised when you cover their ears. So their sense of location and danger and all that is compromised. They don't feel safe. So Ringo was all the time, like he was here, back here in his little bed, just sleeping, plus the meds and all that, antibiotics and painkillers, whatever he was taking. It was really sad. You cannot imagine how happy he was the day he left the hospital without that thing. She was just kissing everyone. She was like those licks and kissing and jumping at everyone, kind of celebrating. His tail could not stop. He was wagging his tail so hard. So that's my little story about my Ringo. And I know it's a very, again, I'm going very particular here in some topics, but for some people I know it doesn't really matter. Maybe you don't like dogs, or maybe you don't have dogs, or whatever. So obviously your stories must be curated according to your audience. But I saw a lot of faces here, like sad with me and nodding and smiling. And they were like, yes, I know. Yeah. And someone just picked their dogs here. So that's what I mean by telling a story. I could give you the fact that a dog's ear bleeds more than you ever imagine. But by telling you the story, you probably will memorize it. Just because I told you a story, your entire brain lit up. That's what happens with stories. Make sense? Cool. Yeah, stories help create empathy with the storyteller too. And the more empathy one has, the more oxytocin is released in your brain. The more oxytocin one has, the more trustworthy you see the speaker. It is the oxytocin is the feel-good chemical, right? So think about this. If you want to be successful in a speaking engagement or in a meeting, and you're able to tell good stories, people will have the feel-good hormone just in their brains, released in their brains, not liberate, released in their brains. And they will feel more empathy towards you. They will like you more. They will think you are trustworthy just because you're telling a story. Again, your story needs to be curated. Don't come with a dog story in a place where people love cats. Pay attention to that sort of thing. But overall, stories have that type of power. Telling stories make people trust you more. And as you begin listening to data, other stuff happens. And I like to put this in here, and this works for all of us, not only for Latinas, but for all of us in general when you're telling stories versus presenting data. It is interesting that several leaders tend to avoid stories and go straight to the data points. That's what they want to share. So, oh, we need to make a presentation for whoever, and then you just create a PowerPoint, very boring PowerPoint with presentation with lots of data in it. But data alone does not change your behavior. Emotions do. Emotions do. Decision-making starts in the amygdala. The amygdala is our emotional center. And it all happens at a subconscious level. So that's when decision-making starts. Do you know when people say, well, I was choosing between this and that, and something, I had a feeling, and people usually touch their stomachs. It's like the gut feeling. I have a gut feeling that I should do something else, not this, but something else. That's the connection with your emotions. That's when your decision-making is actually happening. And then we try to make sense of the decision in our brains, in the cortex, and we start to try to reason the decision that we're making. But it's actually happening in our amygdala. Storytelling and data are not either or. We don't think about, oh, this is storytelling and this is data. No, it's an and. It's combination. You should combine both. Storytelling helps us make sense of the information. And good stories translate the data. Data means different things for different people. So I can show you, the data that I just presented to you in the beginning of the presentation If I tell this data to a different group of people, it's going to mean something different. Maybe they're going to say, oh, that's not a big, huge gap. And for us, it's like, oh, it's a huge gap. So if you don't tell people what you mean by this data through a story or through a narrative, which means storytelling, bridging the gap and connecting the dots, you're not improving the communication. You're just leaving it there for people to take whatever they want. With that, you don't achieve your goals. With that, you're just spreading data around and you're not achieving what you want. Make sense? Now, one thing that I love to say is that good story is always about people. It's not about things. It's about who we are and how we connect. That's what makes good story. Which leads me to your story. Latinas, your story. Do you see how your story can help you? Do you see how telling your story to more people will help you connect with more people? Do you see how through your story you can achieve your goals? Do you have a story to work on? I bet you do. Why don't you write this down? Work on my story. What's your story? Write this. What is your story? What is my story? What can I tell people that will help me achieve my goals and that will help them feel inspired by me? Or also tell their stories to me. Sometimes listening to other people's stories will actually help you reach your goal because you need to learn more about people around you, especially at work. What motivates them? What is moving other people? What's important to them? You're going to learn this through their stories, through what they tell you. So I urge you to work on your story. So you're ready to tell yours and listen to others. People share when we share too. So showing your vulnerability by telling your story is just one way to get someone to tell you something as well. Try that. Don't be shy. This is a quick thing that I love to remind us what great stories are made of. So there are 3 points that I like to bring to us. The first one is purpose. Purpose. Good stories are not about emotions. Sometimes they're like, oh, we need to make people feel something at every moment. Not necessarily. Emotions can happen, but there is a lot of mix-up when it comes to what makes people tick. Some people are more vulnerable to sad stories than others, and some people prefer humor, for example. On the other hand, if you just bring a purpose, the purpose is that flag, this red flag on the illustration here. And this red flag has a reason why it exists. So through purpose, you can show what you value and why you're doing what you're doing. It's how you show your connection with the person you're speaking with or the business. It's how you show people why they should care. The question to purpose is always why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you telling me what you're telling me? So this flag is something that I take you by the hand. You're my audience. I take you by the hand and I make you look at it. We're all looking at it together and understanding the why. Which takes me to the second point, value. And value is the answer to what is in there for me. That's what your audience always asks. What is in there for me? This is the secret question we are always trying to answer when we're being pitched. Someone comes to you to sell you something. You're like, well, what's in there for me? Should I take it? And your goal as the storyteller is to create mutually beneficial situations. It's a win-win. There is value for you and for me. And then the third point of a great story is the flow. It's a dance. I don't know if my picture is just covering the illustration here, but yeah, it's a dance. It's how I just said, it's how I take you by the hand and lead you to contemplate my flag. And how I then offer you this comfortable seat, a nice cup of tea, maybe a glass of wine, and make you smile with your eyes. You observe and you understand. You understand the why. You have all your answers. You have all the answers to your questions. This has to do, the flow has to do with the words choice, with the cadence of your story, with the pauses that you give, with the listening, with the articulation. The way you plan with the flow is by having a clear goal in your mind. That's what you do. That's my goal. And now let me plan the flow. It's like a dance. Let me rehearse the steps. So your strategy to tell a good story should be to communicate with purpose while showcasing value with a clear goal in mind. Obviously doing this beautifully, right? So let me stop sharing. Oh no, before I stop sharing, I want to show you the video. This is a video that I love from a great storyteller, Michelle Obama. I don't care if you like her politically or not, but hands down, she's a great storyteller. And I'm going to show you how she uses personal story to talk about something that she needs politically. What I'm trying to tell you here is pay attention to how you can use your stories to connect with your professional goals. That's key for us to change that gap. That salary gap should not exist. So let me share this video with you.
Over the past few years as First Lady, I have had the extraordinary privilege of traveling all across this country. And everywhere I've gone and the people I've met and the stories I've heard, I have seen the very best of the American spirit. I have seen it in the incredible kindness and warmth that people have shown me and my family, especially our girls. I've seen it in teachers in a near bankrupt school district who vowed to keep teaching without pay. I've seen it in people who become heroes at a moment's notice, diving into harm's way to save others, flying across the country to put out a fire, driving for hours to bail out a flooded town. And I've seen it in our men and women in uniform and our proud military families. In wounded warriors who tell me they're not just going to walk again, they're going to run, and they're going to run marathons. In the young man blinded by a bomb in Afghanistan who said simply, I'd give my eyes 100 times again to have the chance to do what I have done and what I can still do. Every day, the people I meet inspire me. Every day they make me proud. Every day they remind me how blessed we are to live in the greatest nation on earth. Serving as your First Lady is an honor and a privilege. But back when we first came together 4 years ago, I still had some concerns about this journey we'd begun. While I believed deeply in my husband's vision for this country, and I was certain he would make an extraordinary president, like any mother, I was worried about what it would mean for our girls if he got that chance. Yeah, how will we keep them grounded under the glare of the national spotlight? How would they feel being uprooted from their school, their friends, and the only home they'd ever known? See, our life before moving to Washington was filled with simple joys. Saturdays at soccer games, Sundays at grandma's house, and a date night for Barack and me was either dinner or movie, because as an exhausted mom, I couldn't stay awake for both. And the truth is, I loved the life we had built for our girls. And I deeply loved the man I had built that life with. And I didn't want that to change if he became president. I loved Barack just the way he was. You see, even back then, when Barack was a senator and a presidential candidate, to me, he was still the guy who picked me up for our dates in a car that was so rusted out, I could actually see the pavement going by in a hole in the passenger side door. He was the guy whose proudest possession was a coffee table he'd found in a dumpster, and whose only pair of decent shoes was a half size too small. But see, when Barack started telling me about his family,
I'm gonna stop sharing just to give you a moment and think about this. See how personal she gets. So she talks about how the people inspire her. Excuse me. People inspire her. And how she feels when she listens to this and that, and then she names the things. This is rich storytelling. She's giving rich examples. She's giving the details of the examples, so people can connect with this. Every time she says something that people connect with and people feel emotional about, they clap. There's applause. And then she opens up about herself. Like, well, I was scared. That's not an easy task here. No. This is going to change my life. And I love my life the way it is. So see how she can achieve what she needs. She needs people's sympathy. She needs people to feel like Barack and Michelle are part of their family too. That's her goal, to be closer to us. And she uses her personal story to share that. These stories can be very personal, and she could go into more details in this speech. She doesn't need to, but she can. And although they are stories of overcoming, redemption stories, Barack comes from wearing half-size too small shoes to be the president, or for owning a rusty car or a coffee table from a dumpster, to living in the White House and having his drivers and all that. This is a redemption story, but she doesn't frame it as a sad one. It was still full of pride. And we can connect with that very easily. We're like, yeah, it was good then, but it's better now, right? That's what I wanted to keep in mind. Well, and that being said, okay, cool. I like the reactions. Yes. So that being said, what are the main topics us Latinas should look into and work on when we're trying to improve our storytelling skills? I'll give you 10 steps. 10 steps for us to think about, and you can write those down. And then we're going to open up for discussion and questions. So the first one, try and write a story about your future self. Oh, Sil, I can barely talk about myself today. How should I do that? Well, I'll tell you. Our past is what made us today, right? You are here because of your past. If you think back to the day when you imagine how you would be, like 10 days from then, 10 years from then, let's say, Would you imagine that you would be right here? Maybe yes, maybe no. Some of us, yes, we kind of plan that. Some of us, no. What I want you to train to do is think about, well, in 5 years from now, well, in 1 year from now, and then in 5 years from now, and then in 10 years from now, how do I want to be? Who do I look like? How do I sound like? Who are my friends? Where am I working? This is your future self. Write the story about your future self. This is your first step to building that narrative, the narrative that will take you to achieve your goals. Then the second one is going back to the past. Embrace your identity. Embrace and honor who you are. Use your past, use your family's history to add color to your narrative. So you are here because of all these amazing things that someone did for you, did to you. Maybe some bad things too, but then we talked about this already. So write about your future self, but honor your past. Look back and bring this. This is your identity, and using our identities to bring differentiation to the world, to bring diversity, and to foster inclusiveness. It's so important. It's our role to do that. Then 3, this is something that I love us to do, is this is something that I've been doing forever. I don't know since when. Keep the records of your achievements. Keep records, like maybe a file on your computer, or a notebook, a regular analog notebook of your achievements, your accolades, all the compliments you receive. For example, when I was presenting something in one of my first classes in Harvard, I got a tremendous compliment from the teacher, who's a very respected doctor. She's amazing. And she gave me a huge compliment on the ping. She just pinged me as I was finishing presenting. There is a screenshot of this, and I keep it for myself to remember how amazing I was when I was presenting this. We tend to forget how great we are in different moments of our lives. Keep the records of it. And they can also, these records can become topics of your conversations and stories, as you can bring them up in different occasions for different reasons. And these first actions that I just said will help you overcome what? The imposter phenomenon. They do help you overcome the imposter phenomenon. There is one thing that I love to talk about, is we do not suffer from a syndrome. We do not have the imposter syndrome. A syndrome is a collection of symptoms and manifestations that you have in your body, in your mind, because of certain diseases. We are not sick. We are not ill. We don't have a disease. There is an imposter phenomenon out there that's a social construct, and we are the targets. So women feel the impact of the imposter phenomenon much harder than men in general, but men also do. Women feel more, and Latinas feel this even more because of the modesty norms and all that. So when you're doing this first things that I said to you, from the list, embracing your identity and honor your past, your family's history, write about your future self, and keep records of your achievements, your accolades, the compliments you receive, you're already feeding your healthy being and getting rid of the imposter phenomenon. Just get rid of it. Yeah, I see some clapping there. We must. Then, as a 5th tip, make a list of your skills. What are your main skills? What are the skills that you have? List them, like no stop. Do like a journaling exercise. Do not stop. Use pen and paper, better than typing always, and write a list of your skills. Then, as a 6th topic, My sixth tip is divide your skills into 3 columns. First column, people come to me because, and there is a thumbs up here, just because of the sensitivity of this. So people come to me because of these skills. That's what I'm looked for. Then the second column is I am great and I love doing. Then you list those skills. You just put the skills that you're great at and love doing, love applying, love using, put them on the second column. You can repeat if needed. I think it's really nice if you have them repeated. And 3, the third column should be I'm great and good at this, but I do not love applying those. So you have people come to me because I am great at and I love doing. I'm great at, but I don't really like doing, using, applying. This will give you a perspective of the skills that you should be using more and the skills that you don't want to advertise that much. The ones that you're good at, but you do not love, unless they give you tons of money and that's your goal here, do not advertise those anymore. Forget about those a little bit. Try to add new skills. Do something different about them. Then number 7 is you should also make a list of all the things you loved doing when you were a child. And why is that? Because when we were children, we were naturally good at some things and we loved doing some things because they brought us joy. And they brought us joy out of nothing. We did not have a living and a life experience to understand why they brought us joy. So they bring you joy to the core of your being, to your heart, to your soul. They feed you. These are things that you should be doing every now and then. Number 8, try to connect with those things you loved as a child and compare them with the things that you do today. How different are they? Do you still do the same things? Oh my gosh, you're so lucky. Amazing. You don't? Are there any bridges to build? Can you connect these things? Can you add the things that you did as a child to the things that you do today? Are they going to make the things you do today more special, maybe? Can the thing that you did as a child become your next big thing in your life? Maybe. Try to do that. Number 9, create a new list of skills that you should have to make your future self happen. How can your future self become real? What skills do you need and you don't have? Make that list and go after the skill. Try to learn something new. And then 10. Number 10 is begin to practice by telling your story everywhere, to anyone. You don't need to tell your whole story to everyone. Break it into pieces if needed. So if you're in the supermarket and you're speaking to the person, to the cashier, you can tell a bit of your story there and ask for theirs. Tell your story to your neighbor. Tell your story to your partner. Tell your story to a new friend. Tell your story here and there. And ask questions about people's stories. This will give you practice in your storytelling. With that, I'll finish today's class. It's not even a class. This is just like a very easy and simple way to show you a bit of the work that I do with women, both in my group classes. Second group classes start tomorrow. Second session of the group classes are tomorrow. So there's still time for you to join if you want. do let me know, and I'll put the link here on the YouTube. But you can join me in these classes, or you can reach out for us to do one-on-one work together. I love working with women. All the women I've worked with tell me how amazing they feel after our sessions and how they actually made changes in their lives. So that's what I'm looking for with you as well. And I'll stop the recording and answer some questions. Thank you. Muchísimas gracias a todas. Un gusto estar con ustedes aquí. Bye. Ciao.